Hello everyone online, Marshall Zellinger, political reporter for 9 News. We are preparing for Governor Jared Polis' second State of the State address. It always happens the day after the legislative session begins. That began yesterday. 2020 is going to be a key year for what the governor talks about because it's an election year. We talked about this on Next with Kyle Clark last night, that a bit of the election year laws or bills that are attempted to become laws are toned down a little bit from the year before. And we know there was a lot that the governor talked about in his State of the State last year that actually made it through the legislature, made it to his desk, and he signed it into law. It cost the state money from the general fund, and now the question is what is left in that general fund for this year, or are the promises from last year taking up so much money that anything that will cost new money this year may not make it through the legislature. I'm going to keep looking over here to see when the actual House chambers at the state capitol, when the video changes, he'll be introduced shortly at the House chambers. And it's kind of like when the president gives a State of the Union, both the House and the Senate in the state legislature here in Colorado, they join in the House chambers to listen to this governor's probably 45-minute speech. I have some notes from his last year's State of the State and some of the promises he made, and we've been following those. We call them Polis's promises. The first one he called his top priority last year was free full-day kindergarten, and that's the one that we gave a lot of attention to, and it's one of the first things that made it through the legislature, and then the Joint Budget Committee, the group of lawmakers that handle the state's budget, found a way to set aside the money needed. I should have had this number. It's either 140 or I can't remember what the final number was, 140, $170 million to offer free full-day kindergarten for any student. Parents don't have to do it. School districts don't have to participate. That's one of the governor's mantras, is that he does not mandate things, but he highly suggests them and gives the opportunity for someone to take advantage of them, but does not force anyone to do it. So the free full-day kindergarten was passed by the legislature, signed into law, and is already in place. I have a feeling we're going to hear some congratulations to himself as he gives his speech today. Some of the other bullet points: he wanted student loan relief for teachers, and I do believe that that idea of saving teachers money will come up in the legislature this year, and perhaps in a different way. Republicans yesterday, who hold no power in the House or the Senate, held a news conference to introduce 20 education bills, and among them were ideas to either give teachers bonuses, which has to be done by the state because it's local school boards that dictate and negotiate teacher salaries and contracts. Bonuses from the state, which would take some prodding from Republicans to Democrats to try to get them on board with that. I also saw something of trying to offer a tax, I think it's a tax incentive or a tax rebate at the end of the year for teachers who buy supplies for their classrooms. Paid family leave, that was something that was high up in his speech last year. It was controversial. The Democrats killed their own bill for paid family leave last year. That's the idea that employees would pay some of their paycheck toward a fund. Their employers would pay toward this fund. And if you ever wanted to take time off to see a student do something at school that's during the workday, care for an elderly parent, you could tap into this fund to still get paid while you leave work. That did not make it because the business community wasn't on board with it yet, and neither necessarily were employees. That will definitely come back up this year. The idea that perhaps the negotiation is how much out of a paycheck from an employee, how much would a business have to contribute, and then would that fund have enough money for people to tap into? And I was talking with the sponsor of that bill, Democratic State Senator Faith Winter. She said that a few studies have been done, I think she said 5, that show that that fund would be solvent, meaning it would have enough money to handle it. I keep looking over for the slate of the feed from the Capitol to change from the slate that says upcoming State of the State to the actual House chambers, and it hasn't changed yet. I'm curious what funny name of an office that the governor will create in this State of the State. Last year it was the Office of Saving People Money on Healthcare. I'm going to be quiet for a second as we'll go over to the House chambers, and Speaker Casey Becker is going to be introducing the governor, and then I'll come back in as he gets introduced afterwards.
The joint session will now come to order. Senate Majority Leader Fenberg.
Madam Speaker, members, I move that the morning roll call of the Senate be made the Senate roll call of the joint session.
If there's no objection, the morning roll call of the Senate will be made the Senate roll call for the joint session. House Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the morning roll call for the House be made the House roll call for the joint session.
If there's no objection, the morning roll call for the House will be made the House roll call for the joint session. A quorum is present. As is customary, it is my privilege and honor to present this gavel to the President of the Senate with the request that he preside over the proceedings. They're going to move this.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Will the Joint Committee composed of Senators Pedersen and Priola, Representatives Hooten, Arndt, and Sandridge escort the Governor into the House chambers? The joint session will be at ease while we await the Governor. The House will come back to order. The joint session will come back to order. Chief Sergeant of the House, Judson.
Mr. President, Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the Governor of the great state of Colorado.
Will the escort committee please escort the Governor of the great state of Colorado, the Honorable Jared Polis.
Good morning, everyone. And a good morning to everyone. Speaker Becker, Leader Holbert, Leader Neville, members of the General Assembly from across our great state, Lieutenant Governor Diane Primavera, Southern Ute Indian Tribal Chairman Christine Sage, Ute Mountain Ute Tribal Chairman Manuel Hart, Councilman Archie House Jr., Attorney General Phil Weiser, Secretary of State Griswold, Treasurer Young, members of the State Board of Education, Justices of the Colorado Supreme Court, Aurora Mayor Kaufman, members of the Cabinet, our dedicated First Gentleman, Marlon Reese, Thank you all for gathering here this morning. Before we begin, I want to offer my gratitude to the so many people whose tireless dedication to our safety allows us to gather here today and keeps Coloradans safe. The members of our military serving across Colorado and abroad, and our law enforcement officers and first responders. They deserve our deepest thanks. I would also like to honor the memory of those brave Colorado service members and first responders who made the ultimate sacrifice to keep us safe. Some of their families are in the audience with us today. I'd like to ask them to stand so we can acknowledge the sacrifice that those families have made. We also had a recent loss in this chamber. I want to offer my condolences to the family of the late Representative Kimmy Lewis, who we know represented farmers and ranchers and her Eastern Plains and Southern Colorado constituents with passionate resolve. And we want to express our dear condolences to the family of Representative Kimmy Lewis. Finally, we wish a speedy recovery to another of our own, Senator Lois Court. Her determination, her experience, her quick wit will be sorely missed at the Capitol. And finally, as she begins her last year as Speaker, I want to give a special thank you to Speaker Casey Becker for her leadership of this chamber. Her passionate dedication to our people and our planet is truly unmatched. We know that we are blessed to live in a place as special, as amazing as Colorado. Our state's breathtaking natural beauty, our strong economy, our optimistic and forward-thinking people truly make Colorado the envy of the nation and attract people from all over the world who want to visit us and sometimes move here to join us in enjoying that amazing Colorado way of life. And you know, that doesn't happen by accident. This success happens because for decades, Coloradans from across the continental divide, across the political divide, have worked together in good faith to find common ground, to protect what keeps Colorado special, and to build an even better state. And I'm grateful that the men and women in this building are continuing in that tradition. Working together last year, we lowered health care costs. We lowered taxes for small businesses. We provided more affordable housing options. We made the largest ever state investment in transportation, and we delivered free full-day kindergarten for all. That's a pretty darn good start for this General Assembly. On issue after issue, the good faith and thoughtful and bipartisan work of the members in this chamber really helped move our state forward. You know, we should be proud that 95% of the bills that I signed last year were passed with Republican and Democratic votes. We shouldn't take for granted the cooperative spirit. Instead, we should work to strengthen it, because the notion that we're all in this together is a much better approach to solving problems than ever trying to go it alone. When we realize that our fates are interconnected and that we're better together, we can truly solve any problem, however large, that we encounter. And so we stand here today on the cusp of a new decade. It's the 2020s, the future, with a renewed spirit to build on the progress that we've made. Colorado does a lot of things well, and you know what? We need to keep doing those things well. After all, Michaela Schifrin didn't just hang up her skis after becoming the best women's skier of her generation. And I don't think Mallory Pugh or Lindsey Horan stopped showing up to practice after the U.S. women's national team won the World Cup. No, they continued. They continue to strive for greatness, which is really what we all must do. Our state has seen tremendous gains in jobs, in economic growth, in population, in tourism, in national and international prestige. And yet, when I travel across our state and listen to constituents, and I'm sure it's the same with you in your districts, it's clear that too many folks still feel that they're on an economic treadmill where paychecks just don't keep up with the increasing cost of living, from student loans to healthcare costs to rent or mortgage. Coloradans feel like they're running faster and faster on a treadmill, but often not getting ahead. Too many of our fellow Coloradans are anxious that just one hardship, a job loss, a medical emergency, a recession, a natural disaster, an unforeseen challenge, could send them into a financial tailspin. There's a generation of older Coloradans who wonder when, or even if, they'll be able to retire with dignity. And there's a generation of younger people saddled with student debt, threatened by the climate crisis, who fear for their future and the world that they'll inherit. And Coloradans wondering, in this ever-changing modern economy, how to get ahead financially while also finding the time to enjoy the things that make life worth living, whether it's a day out exploring our beautiful public lands or taking a family vacation or just making it home in time to go to your kid's soccer game. Just a chance to get off that treadmill for a little while. Well, with all due respect to the exercise equipment industry, we don't prefer treadmills in Colorado. We prefer trails. We love and enjoy to climb, striving to reach the peak, identifying the next peak, and doing it all over again, always reaching to achieve more. Stagnation just isn't in our DNA. When a challenge arises, we get moving. I mean, why do you think I wear my blue sneakers everywhere, right? This is who we are. It's why we're so successful. And so it's our job as public officials to build a state that allows Coloradans to reach the mountaintop and the next mountaintop by saving families money, by protecting our natural wonders that grace every corner of our state, by widening the pathways to prosperity, instead of leaving too many folks feeling like they're just running in place. And that pathway to prosperity often begins with a great education. Last year at this very podium, I asked you to join me in taking the bold step of providing free full-day kindergarten for every kid in Colorado, and you delivered. The Lieutenant Governor's granddaughter will be appreciating that soon. She's with us today. Thanks to parents and advocates and teachers and dedicated legislators like Representative Jim Wilson and Barbara McLaughlin and Senator Rhonda Fields and Senator Jeff Bridges, members of the JBC, a unanimous vote in the Senate, a supermajority in the House, we took a really important step to improve kids' education, to save families money, and to boost our economy. And I want to show you what that means. I want to introduce someone who's with us in the audience today. Samantha Hosmer, who's seated in the gallery, if you could rise, Samantha, is a mother of two from Erie. She had to leave her job in 2014 to care for a newborn daughter, Fiona, and her son, Logan, who needs extra support for social and emotional challenges. And this past fall, when it came time to enroll Fiona in kindergarten, Samantha and her husband knew that a full day at school was important, but it wasn't something that they could afford. But thanks to your work on free full-day kindergarten, Fiona is getting that full day of instruction. Samantha's family is not only saving $300 a month, but she was also able to return to work as a special ed paraprofessional, able to support her family and her two children with more earnings. Thank you, Samantha. And now it's time to continue that work. Studies show that preschool is every bit as important and critical for a child's development as kindergarten. It's not that parents don't want their kids in preschool, it's that too many parents can't afford it. Last year, we were thrilled to work with you to fund 5,100 additional slots for at-risk children in the Colorado preschool program. And in my budget this year, we're proposing to help an additional 6,000 children attend preschool, which for the first time will bring coverage to half of all eligible Colorado families. And we should feel good about reaching this milestone, but it's taken more than 3 decades of work to get half the job done. We know we must do better, which is why over my first term, I'm committed to achieving universal access to quality preschool for 4-year-olds by the end of my first term. And early childhood education isn't just about giving our kids a great start in life, although truly that's where we start. Every dollar invested in high-quality preschool produces a $7 return on investment to taxpayers with higher earnings, lower special education needs, less dependency on public assistance, and lower crime rates. This isn't just the right thing to do. It's really the smart thing to do, and it's time to get it done. In addition to making those essential investments in early childhood education, we also worked with you to address other areas of our K-12 education last year. We expanded loan forgiveness for rural educators to help address our rural teacher shortage, extended dropout prevention programs to help end the school-to-prison pipeline. And last year, we reduced the budget stabilization factor, the debt owed to our schools, by $100 million, and this year we're calling for an additional $52 million investment. And while we're at it, our teachers, of course, one of the most important professions in our society, shouldn't have to work a second or third job just to make ends meet. We know that under Colorado's system of local control, individual districts set teacher salaries, but when I speak with school leaders, they want to pay teachers better. But because of the fiscal rules, the state spends too much money backfilling some of the wealthiest districts, not just in the state, but in the country. And that's truly at the root of our school funding issues. Together, we can fix the systemic problem and finally raise pay for our hard-working educators. Our work in education is incredibly important, but we can't fulfill our promise of a better future for our kids if we don't do a better job of keeping them safe when they walk through the schoolhouse door. One of the most difficult days of my administration, personally for our state of Colorado, was responding to the STEM school shootings in Highlands Ranch, where 8 students were injured and Kendrick Castillo lost his life, heroically preventing more bloodshed. Kendrick's parents, John and Maria, are with us today, and I want to show our acknowledgement for the heroism of their son. And I'll never forget visiting with them shortly after the STEM tragedy. John told me how he would spend every weekend together and hunting, building robotics, creating memories. He told me how Kendrick was more than just his only son, but was his best friend. And like millions of parents across this state, and many of us here are parents, I imagine myself in their shoes, and I know that we all did. The disbelief, the devastation, the anger, and the pain. The despair of losing a child to senseless violence is a weight that too many parents have been forced to bear for too long. And I want to commend your initial work, the School Safety Interim Committee, for their bipartisan work on this important issue. And I look forward to working with all of you to do more to keep our kids safe, because no parent should have to go through what John and Maria have gone through. Every child in our state deserves a safe opportunity to learn, to make friends, to create memories, and to grow up and graduate and move on to a successful life. Thank you for joining us in recognition of your tragic sacrifice, John and Maria Castillo. You know, most of the time, but not all of the time, that path to success involves some higher education, whether that's a work certificate, a credential, a 2-year degree, a 4-year degree, an industry-recognized certificate, an apprenticeship. But, you know, rising costs are putting higher education out of reach for too many Coloradans. And the burden of student debt isn't only holding back a generation of young people from buying a home or having their own families, but it's also holding back our economy as a whole. So last year, we took action, working with you, to increase the general fund investment in higher education by a historic 13%, an increase that we're building upon in our new budget. Together, we expanded concurrent enrollment and dual enrollment programs so students can spend less time and less money getting the degree that they need to succeed. And thanks to new legislation last year, we're putting $100 into college savings accounts for every single Colorado child born or adopted beginning January 1st of this year. And I want to take a moment to congratulate Jorge Esteban Herrera Delgado, born at 12:07 a.m. on New Year's Day in Montrose, and Cicely DeCerbo, born at 12:13 a.m. in Summit County, the first 2 beneficiaries of this new college savings program. I also want to congratulate the authors of that proposal, Senate Majority Leader Steve Fenberg, a new dad himself who narrowly missed the deadline for a college savings account, and Leslie Herod. And I want to highlight the next affordability effort that they're spearheading called Get On Your Feet Loan Forgiveness Program, a program that provides debt relief to Coloradans who graduate with a 2 or 4 year degree and are on an income-based repayment program, helping them in those first 2 years after they graduate as they're transitioning to the workforce, often when the need is the greatest. This work isn't just about helping student borrowers get out of the hole. It's about growing the economy for everyone. After graduation day, when the caps and gowns are hanging in the closet and the diplomas are hanging on the wall, graduates deserve an economy that's brimming with opportunity to earn a good living. We need to keep our economy strong, and also we need to make sure that our economy works for everyone. And when I say everyone, that means everyone, because in Colorado we believe that your future shouldn't be predetermined by the color of your skin or your parents' income or your religion or your age or your disability status or where you live in our great state or where you were born or who you love or your gender identity. We mean a Colorado for all, and that means everybody. And that's why I was proud to work with you and sign a bill guaranteeing that men and women get paid the same wage for the same work. It's why we are proud to support our minority, women, and veteran-owned businesses. It's why we're excited to open the door of our brand new Veterans One Source Center in Grand Junction several months ago to increase pay for some of our brave National Guard service members. We just deployed 150 to the Balkans last week. I was able to join them in saying farewell to their families for about 10 months as they represent Colorado proudly on their peacekeeping work in the Balkans. It's also why our administration has expanded apprenticeships to support the next generation of workers. It's why we've passed bipartisan criminal justice reform measures that help expand opportunities, save taxpayers money, and I know that I look forward to continuing to work with you on vital pre-trial reforms to build on that progress. And we're proud in Colorado of continuing to support our aerospace industry that bolsters our national defense and creates good, high-paying jobs. We're honored to work with tribal leadership, including those represented here today, to expand opportunities in our native communities. It's also why we're investing in every corner of our state, enhancing rural economic development, helping our rural hospitals thrive, investing in rural broadband, supporting the next generation of farmers and ranchers, and keeping Colorado the #1 state in the nation for industrial hemp. We also look forward to working with you to help folks retire with dignity. And I'm proud to join you in supporting the Colorado Secure Savings Plan Board recommendations, which Treasurer Dave Young has been leading to help more Coloradans save for a secure retirement. And finally, in the face of unprecedented hostility from this White House towards our immigrant and refugee communities, we can say loudly and proudly that in Colorado, we stand with dreamers and with refugees. I was proud to appoint Marissa Molina, the first dreamer in Colorado history, to serve on a state border commission to the board of Metropolitan State University, and I want to take a moment to recognize Marissa, who's here with us today. Marissa? In Colorado, we still need the federal government to pass comprehensive bipartisan immigration reform. I certainly urge the Supreme Court to do the right thing by the Dreamers. But in the meantime, we should acknowledge how aspiring Americans like Marissa are already working today to make Colorado even better. In Colorado, we don't build walls of exclusion. We build ladders of opportunity for everybody. Now, of course, opportunity is one side of the coin. The other side is affordability. And as our state has grown, so has the cost of living. The common thread in our work is to save Coloradans money, whether that's on education, on healthcare, on utility bills, on housing. And we should do more to save Coloradans money on their taxes, too. This year, due to a strong economy and a bipartisan deal from 2005, every Coloradan will receive real tax relief as our state income tax goes down to a historic low of 4.5%. And that's for all taxpayers. That's for individuals, for corporations, for every small business in our state. In addition, working with you last session, we delivered a tax cut for 144,000 small businesses, our retailers, our mom and pop shops, by cutting wasteful subsidies to big box retailers, and we still had money left over to invest in affordable housing and improving health care. I'm very enthusiastic about working with you to deliver permanent income tax relief, and we should continue down this path of eliminating tax breaks for special interests so that we can lower the rates for everyone without reducing state revenue. A broader base taxed at a lower rate will boost economic growth with the ancillary benefit of preventing the corrosive influence of crony capitalism. In the 1960s, President Kennedy delivered a historic tax cut, saying the tax system, quote, exerts too heavy a drag on growth, siphons out too large a share of purchasing power, and reduces the financial incentives for personal effort, investment, and risk-taking, end quote. And in 2010, President Obama directed his economic team towards, quote, closing loopholes and simplifying income taxes for corporations and individuals to rid the code of its complex buildup of deductions, credits, and exemptions, thereby broadening the base of taxes collected and allowing for lower rates, end quote. Now, first, to our credit, our state tax system is much better than the federal one, so let's start with some credit where it's due. But we also know that it's not just Democrats like JFK and Obama who want to save you money on taxes. I think I might have heard a thing or two from my Republican friends and our colleagues about it as well. So in the spirit of collaboration, I'm proud to announce today that we will be creating a bipartisan study group to work on making our tax code more fair by looking at ways to broaden the base and lower the rate by the end of my first term, and we look forward to working with you to make that happen. Broadening the base and lowering the rate will lead to higher wages and make balancing the family budget that much easier. In the meantime, I certainly look forward to working with you on other creative ways that we can provide tax relief and invest in roads and schools. And as we work to broaden our base and lower the rates, we also need to focus fiscally on saving more for a rainy day. Last year, I asked the legislature to put away an additional $180 million into savings to replenish what was spent in the Great Recession, but only $40 million was placed in reserve. So this year, I urge you to replenish our reserves and recessionary tools with an additional $118 million to bring us in line with the national average and better prepare us for a future downturn, whenever that happens. And I want to commend my cabinet and budget director for taking the lead on this by finding $73 million in savings, in general fund savings, $238 million in savings overall, to make sure that taxpayers are getting the biggest bang for their buck. We're also working with Treasurer Young on a legislative package that will provide future legislatures and governors with the tools to rebuild and replenish our coffers as a recovery is happening. With so many pressing needs today, putting money in reserves is always a hard ask. I get that. But we truly have an obligation to save during good times like these so that we can weather the next storm whenever it comes. Now, at the end of the day, there's one issue that from family budgets and worries and costs continues to reign over so many others when it comes to affordability, and that's the high cost of health care. I'm sure you've heard a thing or two about it from your constituents. Many of you have lived that experience yourself. Americans still pay twice as much for health care than those living in other developed nations. And for most of us, it's our biggest expense after rent or mortgage. Nearly 1 in 5 Coloradans forego health care because of costs. 1 in 3 can't afford prescription drugs that they need, often leading to higher costs over time. And 13% of Americans, 1 out of 8 who live in this country, say they know someone who died because they couldn't afford treatment. This must change. And it's starting to change for the better, thanks to your bipartisan work, the tremendous work of our Lieutenant Governor, Diane Primavera, who heads up our Office of Saving People Money on Health Care. Last session, we passed historic bipartisan legislation to tackle surprise out-of-network billing, enact new transparency requirements for hospitals, allow for the importation of cheaper prescription drugs from Canada, and perhaps the biggest accomplishment in healthcare last year was the reinsurance program, a bipartisan effort led by Representatives Julie McCluskey and Janice Rich and Senators Kerry Donovan and Bob Rankin. Thanks to reinsurance, healthcare rates on the individual market have gone down this year by an average of 20%. And the savings are even higher where Coloradans were getting ripped off the worst in the Eastern Plains and Southern Colorado and the Western Slope. And we should be proud of this work. But a lot of the time, the best ideas don't come from inside this building. They come directly from our communities. And I want to give you another example of what's happening on healthcare and how our work is helping to deliver savings working with you. In Summit County, the Peak Health Alliance pulls individuals and employers together and uses their combined purchasing power to negotiate down the prices with hospitals to directly save consumers money. Our Division of Insurance is already working with the Colorado Business Group on Health to help replicate and expand the successful consumer purchasing model in Grand, Eagle, Archuleta, Dolores, La Plata, Montezuma, and San Juan counties, and I know there's more to come. I want to introduce you to someone that our policies directly helped, who saw firsthand how our broken system is and the decisions that we make in this building can fix it. Glenn Brady is a small business owner in Summit County. Glenn is a single father because his wife, Kelly, tragically passed away from cancer in 2018, leaving a hole in their family with his 3 young daughters, who I met just before this speech. But as if the loss of a loved one isn't enough, the Bradys were hit with hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical debt. Glenn was also frustrated by the high cost of insurance for himself and his 3 daughters, Lucy, Ava, and Adelaide. But thanks to the bipartisan reinsurance program that we passed this year and the Peak Health Alliance, Glenn is saving $7,000 a year on the very same health care plan he had last year. Glenn? But before this, he was telling me he might have even saved a little bit more than $7,000 as he was tallying it up. And what that means, because healthcare is something, you have 3 daughters, you're a single parent, you simply can't go without, right? And to be able to afford that and also make sure that he's able to honor the promises that he made to his late wife, Kelly, that his kids would have the best education and tutoring and braces, and that their death wouldn't interrupt their kids' activities or lives. And the savings that Glenn has realized are helping to pay for those things that Kelly wanted for her kids and fulfill the promise that he made to Kelly and her final wishes, and ensure that their wonderful 3 daughters grow up with all of the opportunities we would want for our own sons and daughters. Thank you, Glenn. Now, reinsurance is delivering real savings, but the peace of mind of having health care coverage is truly priceless. We are asking in our budget for a modest $18 million investment in reinsurance to continue to protect these savings for Glenn and hundreds of thousands of other Coloradans for another year. We know that health care costs won't magically go down on their own. We all need to work on it. We need good ideas from the left, the right, the center, from everywhere. This year, I'm proud to support legislation to require prescription drug pricing transparency and a proposal to provide Coloradans a public option to increase freedom and choice in the healthcare marketplace. I want to thank Senator Donovan, Representative Dylan Roberts, Representative Mark Catlin for their leadership on launching this important concept. It's really simple market economics. When you have more choices as a consumer, companies have to compete for your business, which means lower prices. We estimate that the public option will save Coloradans an additional 9 to 18% on their individual premiums. And furthermore, the public option will empower folks in the 22 Colorado counties where there's currently only one insurer and no choice. Now look, we know, you might have heard, that there's powerful special interests with a stake in preserving the status quo. Colorado happens to have the second highest hospital profit margin in the country, Front Range hospitals with over $2 billion in profits in 2018. Let me say that again, $2 billion of profits in a single year, are already using some of those profits from overcharging patients to run ads against legislation that would save families money. We won't let that work. Just this year, we're also seeing pharmaceutical drugs coming to the market with a price tag of over $2 million for a single dose. And of course, those folks are going to fight legislation that brings some sanity to pricing. I get that. But we don't represent the special interests. We represent the people. And the people are crying out for relief on high health care costs, and we can and we will do better. Another way we can reduce healthcare costs and ensure a healthier population is by standing up to big tobacco to reduce underage smoking and teenage vaping and address our highest in the nation teenage vaping rate. And we look forward to working with you to make progress on that issue. Reducing costs on our health care will also help us tackle one of our most pressing problems, our state's behavioral, mental health, and addiction crisis. Last year, thanks to your work, I appointed a behavioral health task force to conduct a top-to-bottom review of Colorado's behavioral health system, author a strategic plan for reform by June of this year. Our state already spends $1.4 billion on mental and behavioral health. We need to make our system patient-centric and more efficient so we can get the right help to more people when they need it. I want to thank CDHS Director Michelle Barnes, Representatives Lois Longroff and Tracy Kraft Thorpe and Daphne Michelson-Janae for their dedication and work on behavioral health, as well as Senator Brittany Pedersen and Representative Chris Kennedy and the members of the Opioid Study Committee for all of their strong work. I look forward to collaborating with all of you on desperately needed reforms for behavioral health. And by the way, often those reforms can save money. It's frustration of many hospitals and providers that they don't have adequate step-down facilities that may not only incur a lower billing rate, but are more appropriate to deliver a better patient outcome for folks who shouldn't necessarily be hospitalized, but need a kind of step-down facility treatment. And finally, we want to work with you to find a way to enact paid family and medical leave for more Coloradans. The Federal Family and Medical Leave Act allows for unpaid leave, but that often forces families to choose between getting a paycheck and caring for a newborn child, an aging parent, or themselves. And for many who don't have months of rent or mortgage saved up, that's not a real choice. I'm hopeful that together we can construct a unique Colorado solution that provides paid time off to many more Coloradans as soon as possible without straining state resources or forcing taxpayers to bear the financial risk. I know that it's no easy task. You know, one of my favorite sayings is, if it was easy, it would have been done already. We're not left with the easy things to do, we're left with the hard ones. It's going to take negotiations and compromise to get it done, but I'm committed to putting in the hard work. And in fact, let's lead by example in the next fiscal year by extending this benefit to our exceptional state employees who make Colorado run. How about if we say, just as President Trump and our Congress did for our federal employees? You know, we need to plan not only for our own health and well-being, but also for our states. And true leadership is planting trees that we know we may not live long enough to enjoy the shade of. Previous generations in Colorado were wise enough to understand that there's some things you can't replace, that once they're gone, they're gone. And of course, I'm talking about protecting our iconic public lands and wild areas and what keeps Colorado special, whether it's the ground under our feet, the water we drink, the air we breathe, really the most essential part of what it means to be a Coloradan. Our majestic lands define our state and also power our economy by making us an international destination for tourism and for outdoor recreation. But like so many things in our state, growth threatens our enjoyment and our benefit from some of our natural treasures. In a very real sense, we're loving some of our public lands to death. Admissions to state parks have skyrocketed, which is great, but that means that there's more need for upgraded trails and bathrooms and parking and facilities, and it's urgent. So we're asking the legislature for a one-time infusion from the general fund to make important capacity improvements across our state park system. This money will also go towards opening our newest state park at Fisher's Peak. I was delighted to stand with Senate President Garcia, Senator Crowder, JBC Chair Escar, as we announced the new spectacular state park that will run from near Trinidad all the way to the New Mexico border and will reap enormous benefits for our economy and for Southern Colorado residents. We know that our state's growth also affects our ever-scarce water supply. I was glad to see Proposition DD, led by House Majority Leader Alec Garnett and House Minority Leader Patrick Neville and Senators Donovan and Cook, pass at the ballot box. Congratulations. In addition to the future revenues that will derive from DD, I've also called for a $10 million investment in the Colorado Water Plan and look forward to meeting those commitments. As we've all noticed, our growth isn't just impacting our public lands and waters, it's also making our roads and bridges more congested, less safe. All of us are spending more time sitting in traffic, which means less and less time with our loved ones and less economic productivity. Thanks to good faith bipartisan work, the state was able to make a historic multi-year investment in transportation infrastructure. My administration held listening sessions in every county in this state to hear directly from folks about their priorities. We've worked to develop a plan to use our precious resources in the most effective way that we can, relieving congestion on key choke points on Highway 25 and Highway 70, making busy streets in our cities move quicker, and making the biggest investment in rural roads in modern Colorado history. But the general fund alone can't meet our state's needs. And voters have rejected 3 straight ballot measures in the last 2 years to fund roads, even while our existing revenue source, the fuel tax, is bringing in less and less at a time when our needs are growing. Thus, Coloradans look to us in this building to think big and do more to fund our roads. And as we look towards a future where there's new users and changing technology that needs to pay its fair share, we should also give local jurisdictions and CDOT more flexibility around working together for funding regional projects. But we can't create a system that excludes rural Colorado. We need to deliver for everyone in our state, and it's going to take all of us in this room working together, not playing politics, to get it done and solve it. By investing in our infrastructure and providing more affordable and convenient transportation options, we can relieve traffic congestion, reduce harmful emissions that blacken our skies, and also boost our entire economy. Reducing traffic and getting people places quicker also helps us address our air quality and carbon emissions. And of course, when it comes to renewable energy and climate, it's an issue, of course, that impacts all of us in this chamber, every one of our constituents, indeed every person on the face of the earth. In the western United States, we of course are seeing firsthand how a changing climate is already impacting our water supply, our outdoor recreation industry, our farming and ranching communities, and our taxpayers. It's causing more frequent, more devastating, and more expensive natural disasters. 13 of the largest fires in Colorado's recorded history have occurred since 2010. All 20 have occurred since the year 2000. I want to commend the brave Colorado firefighters who are heading to Australia right now to do their part in helping contain one of the worst wildfires in the history of civilization. This is truly a global crisis. And of course, we're never going to solve air quality or climate issues if we look at the person next to us and say, you do something about climate. If we want to preserve our way of life for future generations, then we all need to lead on clean air and climate. And in fact, the states and counties that embrace the renewable energy future will reap the economic benefits. That's why we've taken bold action to put us on the path towards achieving 100% renewable energy by 2040. But the truth is that due to the price reductions and technological advances, the shift towards renewable energy is happening, and it's being driven by the private sector that sees a profitable future in renewable energy. Just this morning, some exciting news. Tri-State and its members announced that they will be replacing their remaining coal power in the state of Colorado with thousands of megawatts of cheaper and cleaner renewable energy sources by 2030. This announcement will result in a 90% reduction in Tri-State's greenhouse gas emissions. You know, this transition includes expanded energy efficiency programs, a significant investment in electric vehicle charging stations, working with their member co-ops. We're also excited to work with Tri-State and their 17 member co-ops across our state to help make sure that they're empowered to generate more renewable energy locally. We want communities to have the option of reaping the benefits of clean, low-cost, local energy generation. And with talks underway, we're hopeful that significantly more local flexibility in Tri-State members will be finalized by April of this year. This transition means lower energy costs and savings for ratepayers, more renewable energy jobs. It means reduced air pollution. It's a bold step to protect the future of our planet and prepare Colorado to succeed in the future. But we also need to recognize the disruption caused to workers, families, and communities that are impacted by the private sector's turn away from coal. That's why I intend to work with utilities, including Tri-State and our new Office of Just Transition, to expand opportunities in renewable energy and help ensure that no worker and no community is left behind. And we're confident that this transition works because it's happening right now. And here's an example in Pueblo, Colorado. The Evraz Rocky Mountain Steel Plant uses a lot of energy. It's an energy-intensive manufacturing process. And Evraz had to find a cheaper power source to stay competitive and to stay in Pueblo. So working with Xcel Energy, they're building the largest behind-the-meter solar project in American history to power the steel plant, creating hundreds of solar jobs, keeping thousands of steel jobs in Pueblo, reducing costs, and helping to save our way of life all at the same time. That is what our renewable energy future looks like. innovation, about growing jobs, about growing opportunity, about saving people money and doing our part to reduce air pollution in the process. And we don't have any time to waste. You know, those of you who know me well know that I'm a big science fiction fan. Last year I had a Spider-Man quote. This year, it's not Star Wars, it's going to be Lord of the Rings. In the first part of the trilogy, Frodo, the protagonist, laments that he needs to carry this awesome burden of saving the world from a growing darkness. Gandalf, his guide, responds with a charge that I think really applies to all of us here in this chamber. Gandalf said, quote, "All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us," end quote. Every lawmaker here, myself included, is term limited. What do we want our legacy to be? When our great-grandchildren open their history books, what do we want them to read about us in our time? Will it say that we were too scared to tackle the big issues? That we were too timid to act on evidence that's right under our noses? That we were perhaps too cynical to even try? Or will we be remembered as a generation that rose to the challenge of our time? That looked beyond the daily news cycle or the next election and found a way to work together to forge a brighter future, and that lived up to the expectations of our children and our grandchildren, whose future we hold in our hands. We have the power to do the right thing. All we need is the courage to use it. Colorado has always been a state of trailblazers, of frontiersmen and women. Ours is a state of can-do people and can-do attitude. We don't back down from a challenge, and we don't quit when the going gets tough. The state of our state is strong. It's forward-thinking, it's dynamic, it's bold, it's courageous. Now let's get to work and show the world what we can accomplish together. God bless you all. God bless the great state of Colorado, and God bless the United States of America.
Please join me in thanking the governor. Please join me in thanking the governor, and will the committee please escort the governor to his chambers?